Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Mid-fall elections are coming up and a lot is at stake, and not just on the policy questions. If Democrats win, and at this point that could definitely happen, maybe it's even likely to happen, they will immediately try to impeach the president. Now, they claim they're not planning to do that, but that's untrue. They've wanted to impeach Trump since the day he took office. The first crime they alleged, you'll remember, was collusion with Russia. Then they claimed obstruction of justice for firing Jim Comey, because firing people in the federal government is by definition obstruction. After that, they fantasized about impeaching the president for the supposed crime of pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. Then it was the immigrant family separation. And then it was the Helsinki press conference with Vladimir Putin, which they told us was treason. Now there's the news this week that Trump paid off an ex-girlfriend in an extortion scheme. They're claiming that's impeachable, too. No doubt there will be other high crimes they tell us about in the near future. The pretext doesn't really matter, actually. Democrats want to remove Trump from office because they hate him. That's the reason. If they get their congressional majority back, they will start that process on day one. They will have to do that because their base demands that they do that. Look at the polls. That tells you the whole story. Republicans, of course, are horrified by all of this, but they shouldn't be horrified by it. Unlike a special counsel investigation or sabotage by career federal bureaucrats, impeachment is legitimate. It is a constitutional process. If you think a president has committed high crimes, you impeach him. That's what the document tells us to do. You put him on trial in Congress, you present your evidence, you let the Senate decide guilt or innocence. There's nothing secretive about it or stealthy. It all takes place in public. It is a totally transparent process. Voters get to decide what they think, and then they render their judgment at the ballot box. Last time Congress impeached a president, voters did not like it at all. They punished the party that did it, the Republicans, in the midterm elections of 1998. That was 20 years ago, but Democrats, who have a long memory, remember it well. And that's why they're lying about their intent to impeach Trump right now. Democratic lawmakers act like the thought of impeachment has barely crossed their minds. Impeachment? Really? What? It's the same tactic they use with immigration and so many other issues. Hide their real goals and hope the country doesn't notice. Well, we have noticed. So let's have an honest debate about it. Joining us now is Christy Setzer. She's president of New Heights Communications. Christy, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
So you will concede, I hope, that there's really no, and by the way, this is not an attack, as I just noted, merely an observation. There's really no question that Democrats will have to initiate impeachment proceedings against Trump if they retake the House.
I'm not sure about that. What I do think is that Democrats want some measure of accountability. I think that we've been extremely frustrated, not to put too fine a point on it, by the last 20 months in which no matter what Trump has done, whether it has been a series of things that most Americans find immoral or un-American, or even at this point actively criminal behavior, Republicans have sat on their hands and done nothing about it. We've seen hearing after hearing on Hillary's emails, but none on, let's say, to get to the bottom of the Trump Tower meeting.
Well, there has been quite a, I think we've covered it maybe every night for the last year and a half, this Russia investigation, two of them actually, one initiated by Congress, the other by the special counsel. But I just don't understand why everyone's so embarrassed of impeachment. That is the constitutional remedy. It's a political process. It's designed to be a political process. The rest of us can participate in it by voting. Why are we lying? Why are Democrats lying about impeachment? Oh, well, we're not really sure. Of course you're going to impeach him. You should impeach him. If you think he committed crimes, impeach him. Why is that a scary thing to say?
Because it's one of many options, right? Right now, we're looking at several different ways, I believe, that the president could be held accountable. The biggest one and the most salient one, I think, for most Democrats are the November elections, in which, yes, there will be measures to hold the president accountable if Democrats take back the House and, hell, maybe even the Senate. But the other way is judicial accountability. We are now talking about a president who has potentially committed crimes. He was the unindicted co-conspirator in Michael Cohen's case.
But before I ask you about that crime, let me just ask for the third time this question. Why not just say the most accountable form of accountability is impeachment, because it's transparent, unlike the legal proceedings we're watching, certainly unlike the creepy special counsel investigation. There's nothing hidden about impeachment. You present your evidence in public in an open court. Why are Democratic leaders lying about that? Well, we're not really sure. If you think he committed crimes, why wouldn't you impeach him? What is the answer, honestly?
I think the answer, honestly, is that some people have called for that, but the political reality is that you take 67 votes in the Senate.
Oh, the public doesn't like it. Oh, I get it, because if there was broad public support for it, then you would do it. But if he's such an obvious criminal, why isn't there public support for it?
Well, the real question is, why isn't there Republican support for it, right? That is the political reality.
Because their voters don't want it. That's why.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a political process.
But why wouldn't they want it, given that, again, the president has committed a crime,
they disagree
more
with
than
you.
one federal crime?
Because they disagree with you. And disagreement is still allowed, despite the left's attempts to criminalize it. We're allowed to disagree still, for this brief moment. So, again, my question is, if it's so obvious the president has committed all these crimes, why doesn't the majority of America want him impeached? I'm confused.
I'm not sure that they don't, to be honest. But again,
well, no
I think that the more immediate goal for Democrats should be political accountability and judicial
accountability. Well, you have political accountability. It's called impeachment, but you don't want to do it because despite all the carping about how he's a criminal, you still haven't convinced the public of that. And I wonder if that gives you pause. You spend 2 years telling everyone that he's a racist and a felon, but they still don't believe it. Maybe they don't believe you.
I think that the views on actually are changing. If you look at the Democratic base, for example, they actually do want that, and the majority of independents do as well. But at the same time, again, I don't think that that should be the only option.
No, but it's the legitimate one. It's rather than use entrenched career federal bureaucrats to undermine the president in really the least legitimate possible way. Why not just man up and do it in an honorable constitutional way? That's my plea to you. Please do it. But let's get to the crime. So you will concede that he was extorted by Stormy Daniels. He paid her over $100,000 because he didn't want her to talk. That's extortion. I think we all would.
No, that is paying off a porn star to keep silent about something that he.
Why is that not extortion? If I say I'm going to tell the public about something bad you did unless you pay me money, that's called extortion.
This is actually a pattern of behavior that Donald Trump has, not just with Stormy Daniels, but with other women he's slept with, and also people in the White House.
But I'm not denying that.
No, I'm just saying.
And I don't think he should have paid them, and I think it's immoral. That's my view.
Yeah.
But paying someone to keep quiet, if I demand that you give me money in order to be quiet, I'm extorting you, I'm blackmailing you, which is itself a crime. Why would you support that?
What I don't support is the fact that in Donald Trump's White House, and I believe this is unprecedented, he has asked for not just NDAs from everybody who works there or was on the campaign, but also non-disparagement agreements, which means that nobody who
But hold on, you're not answering my question.
No, I am. I'm saying this is the way he operates.
Okay.
This is the way he operates.
But he paid her, or else she was going to besmirch his reputation. That's extortion. Okay. But where's the crime? I'm totally missing that. I mean, I think you could argue it's immoral to cheat on your wife. You guys don't believe in marriage, so you're not going to argue that. But instead you're arguing it's a campaign.
I sit here as a married woman, but yes.
But I mean, obviously that's the real argument, but instead it's a campaign finance violation? It's not.
It is a campaign finance violation. If you are using money from the campaign to pay off this woman.
Yes, that's a crime right there. But that's not what he's accused of doing. He's not accused of using campaign donations to pay her off, is he? Because that would be a crime.
I believe he is, and that's why he said, no, I used campaign
because that's
money
a flat out, I mean, look, if I'm wrong, I will definitely stand corrected. And I will not defend that, by the way, because that would be a flat out crime and people go to jail for that. My impression is it's his money. That's nothing to do with the campaign.
I think that is what he said, although the story, as you know, has changed quite a bit from I didn't know anything about it to I learned about it later.
My producers who are on this say there's no evidence that he used campaign funds. Again, that would be a crime, and I would be the first to say he should be prosecuted for that.
Okay.
But no one's listening. So why is it a crime to accede to an extortion demand? I'm totally, honestly confused.
The reason why that people have been very exercised about this is because this happened at a really suspicious time, right? It happened October before the election, so a couple weeks, let's say, right after the Access Hollywood tape had come out, and it truly, truly damaged his candidacy to the point of people wondering if he was actually going to have to drop out or something.
Well, he won anyway, right?
So it was going to be coming out potentially at the same time. He wanted to make sure it didn't.
Okay, so
that is what it is.
So you're saying that if people had found out that Donald Trump might have committed adultery, something he bragged about on Howard Stern multiple times, that they wouldn't have voted for him, even after they saw the Access Hollywood tape where he bragged about his low sexual standards. So, like, actually what you're saying doesn't make any sense at all.
That's actually the case, though, is that his ratings, his approval ratings dropped significantly. His polling dropped significantly after the Access Hollywood tape came out. So when Bill Clinton paid off during the 1996 campaign Monica Lewinsky with a job, when he sent her over to Bill Richardson for a job, paid her off for her silence, that wasn't a campaign finance violation. But this president paying off his girlfriend is... Bill Clinton was extensively investigated.
He definitely was. He was definitely impeached. He shouldn't have been. I agree. But he wasn't charged with a campaign finance violation. Why is that?
I think that they're apples and oranges.
Okay. They're apples and oranges. Well, I'm calling apples on that. Christy, I hope you impeach him so we can just have an honest conversation about it.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you. Dan Bongino is a former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor, author of Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald J. Trump. He joins us tonight. So, Dan, I'm probably the only right-of-center person in America who would welcome an impeachment trial because I'm sick of all of these efforts taking place sub rosa, hidden. We don't know exactly what's going on. I would welcome an open conversation of what the alleged crimes are. Why don't we have an impeachment trial and just get this over with?
Because the Democrats don't want it right now, because they would get absolutely smoked in the Senate. Christie's right. 67 votes. You'd be lucky to get 40 votes on that. The American public would be furious as they learned from the Clinton operation. Tucker, the American people in the Clinton impeachment trial spoke loudly. If you were going to overturn a duly elected president, his results in winning an election, you damn well better bring the goods. What do they have now, Tucker? Taxi cab medallions and National Enquirer stories? This is what you got? Bob, this is what you have right now. We've been told for a year and a half as you slam the emergency brake on the entire country's operations that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians to win an election, and you bring us the National Enquirer, a Manafort guy who didn't pay his taxes allegedly years before he met Trump, and you bring us a taxi cab medallion case. This is the best you've got? Tucker, wait, one more thing, too. With all due respect to your prior guest, I know she's very nice, but she doesn't even have basic facts of the case right. Donald Trump was not accused of paying with campaign funds. It was personal funds. That's kind of a big deal before you go on the air and start calling for accountability. You don't even know the facts of the case.
Well, I was confused by that because... Yeah, I mean, of course, if it were campaign funds, Jesse Jackson Jr. went to prison for that. Lots of people have gone to prison for that, but that's not the allegation. I'm a little confused, though. Why is Stormy Daniels not being charged with extortion? If somebody came to me and said, I'm going to destroy your reputation unless you pay me money, I'd call the cops immediately, even if I did it. I mean, of course, because that's extortion. But nobody mentions that she blackmailed the guy. I mean, he went along with it, but she still blackmailed him. Why is that not an issue?
Well, if Donald Trump was a Democrat, it would be an issue. It'd be on the front page of the Washington Post. They'd be attacking her credibility just like they attacked Ken Starr. Remember that doozy? But what I find fascinating about this, too, Tucker, you just had a Democrat guest who's a strategist talking about, again, accountability, talking about this specific payment, and yet they completely ignore the fact that the Clinton team actually paid, Tucker, with real campaign funds, a law firm that then declared the payment as legal services, and used the money to go hire a foreign agent to spy on the Trump team. That was done with actual campaign funds to put together a fake dossier. But nobody seems to care. They're worried about Donald Trump and Daniel Stormy or Stormy, whatever her face is. I mean, this is it. This is why we've slammed the brakes on the country for a year and a half. This is the best you could. This is like the biggest joke in American history. Unfortunately, the joke's on us.
The ruling class hates populism above all. And I think, and we're out of time, but I just got to say, I hope that we can talk about this off camera, but at some point we need to reassess what happened to John Edwards. I always thought he was kind of a sleaze. But they got him. They tried to send him to prison for paying off a girlfriend. Why is that? Because he wasn't actually liberal. He was a populist. And that's the thing they hate most, I think. Anyway, Dan, thank you. It's great to see you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, we've heard endlessly for, I don't know, a couple years now about the threat that Russia poses to our democracy. But if you're looking for threats to our democracy, how about Silicon Valley, which could change the course of our election instantly without any of us knowing about it? We're going to speak to the most knowledgeable person in the world on this question next, and it will curl your hair. Stay tuned. Well, you know, the creepy porn lawyer can suck a person's soul through a television screen. That's bad enough, but he wants more. He wants to consume your wallet as well. CPL has created his own political action committee called Fight PAC to support his inevitable run for president. Creepy porn lawyer says his PAC will finance his travel. That's a little scary, too. More travel means it's easier than ever for him to sneak into your local television station, even your basement. Remain on the lookout. Whatever you do not donate will only make him more aggressive, just like in Yellowstone.
So many people accusing Hollywood right-wingers, especially, of being fake and hypocrites. They're not wrong. We just have to stop the rot at the top, because it affects everything. And if we can get rid of that rot, we can be a free society and a better society, and I know this.
We know this. That was actress and noted moral voice Rose McGowan, the Harvey Weinstein accuser, one of the leaders of the Me Too movement. Last year, she downplayed the importance of due process. She tweeted this, quote, "It is quite simple. Everything in Hollywood is quite simple. All who have worked with known predators should do 3 simple things. 1, believe survivors. 2, apologize for putting your careers in wallets before what was right. 3, grab a spine and denounce. If you do not do these things, you are still moral cowards." Okay, so she drew a line in the sand. And then this. Fellow Harvey Weinstein accuser Asia Argento has been accused of paying off a man she is accused of sexually assaulting when he was underage. Now, McGowan is saying something very different. Here's her new tweet, quote, "None of us know the truth of the situation, and I'm sure more will be revealed. Be gentle." Okay. Christina Hoff Sommers is an author. She works at the American Enterprise Institute. She hosts the podcast, The Femsplainers. She's very smart. That's why she's joining us tonight. Christina, thanks a lot for coming on. So due process, I guess, looks a little more appealing when you're on the receiving end of mob justice, doesn't it?
Yes, due process for me, but not for thee.
Yeah.
We need a little consistency, or it looks like hypocrisy and cronyism.
Wouldn't it be easier just to stipulate, as the framers did, that everybody gets due process, even the obviously guilty, even the people who say, come on, he did it? There's a reason that we go through all these steps. It's not just kabuki. I mean, there's an actual principle worth preserving. Why does nobody say that?
Well, somehow in the all the excitement around the Me Too movement, we sort of lost sight of that, and it came to a moment where it was as though guilty because accused. And a lot of people without evidence had their reputations ruined. Now, there are people that are guilty of serious harassment and sexual predation,
for sure.
and we have to make them accountable. But it just turns out that some of the guilty include women.
So I think most of us understand intuitively that most people accused not just of harassment, but of anything, probably guilty. But not all. Some are innocent, and it used to be that
Absolutely.
liberals reminded us, well, I've been accused of something I didn't do. So I know that for a fact. Liberals used to remind us of that, and those of us on the right would say, oh, they're all guilty, but they're not actually all guilty. Where is the left now reminding us that due process and civil rights are real, and they're very important?
Well, that whole idea of due process has been lost on the college campus, where we've had by now hundreds of cases of young men who were subject to kangaroo court justice, and there was just no one taking their side, or very few. I mean, there have been those of us out on the outside in groups like FIRE who've been making a plea for due process. And I actually agree with Rose McGowan that we should proceed with care in all cases.
Yes, I agree.
I just wish that she'd applied that consistently.
Has the fever passed, do you think?
I think that these revelations about Asia Argento, and there's also a professor at NYU, a feminist luminary scholar, female, who has been found guilty of harassing a young male graduate student. For years, she stalked him and was texting. She was obsessed with him, and there's some evidence that she actually, attacked him sexually. So this changes a little bit the focus, because this idea of believe women, maybe we should. I don't think anybody deserves, to be absolutely believed until we examine the evidence, but
exactly.
Every victim should be taken seriously and treated with dignity, whether it's a man or a woman. And in the case of this NYU professor, Avital Ronell, the young man that accused her, a group of famous feminist scholars just sort of gathered around and wrote a letter and said, oh, well, he's a liar, and she's such an important, dignified feminist professor. How can we take him seriously? And it was astonishing to the academic community to see this kind of hypocrisy. So I do believe in the Me Too movement. I think that it's an occasion, where there's just more consciousness about the need for more dignity and respect between men and women in the workplace and in everyday life. But it has to be something that men and women do together. And it shouldn't be that we treat men as the enemy, and that, you know, we look at harassment as something only men do. This is a human undertaking, and I hope that these revelations about these women harassers and predators will help us to see that.
I'm certainly not taking any more lectures from Rose McGowan. I've decided. I'm starting there. Christina Hoff Sommers, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
We've heard a ton, endlessly really, about Russia's threat to democracy, but very little about the much greater threat to our democracy, to our elections, to self-government from Silicon Valley. That is real, and our analysis of it is just ahead. Well, you've almost certainly heard it once or twice, or perhaps 1,001 times. Russia is an existential threat to American democracy. Maybe the single dumbest talking point of all time. But it's an article of faith in the Democratic Party, and so it's repeated robotically by their servants in the media. Here's an example.
Our democracy is at risk. Russia attacked our elections.
Russians are equal opportunity malevolent actors.
Putin's Russia will stop interfering in American politics and American elections when we stop him.
The one person he hasn't blamed is the man who's actually responsible, Vladimir Putin.
The Russians are once again waging a campaign to interfere in our elections.
Boy, the whole topic is like an IQ test, and you just saw some of the kids who failed. But how about this? If a few Russians buying Facebook ads threatens our democracy, and that's what they're telling us, how about the threat of Facebook itself or other tech giants? Representatives from about a dozen tech companies, including Facebook and Twitter, held a secret meeting today, ostensibly to discuss how to resist manipulations of these platforms. But could it be that these companies themselves are manipulative? Could they, and not the Russians, be imperiling our democracy? Nobody has studied this more carefully than Robert Epstein. He's a senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research, and he joins us tonight. Dr. Epstein, thanks very much for joining us. I just want to say at the outset, I have no idea what your politics are. I don't think you're a conservative. I don't think it matters. You care about democracy. Tell us, should we be concerned potentially about the manipulation of our democracy by the tech companies?
Tucker, it's great to be back. I am not a conservative, and we should be extremely concerned, because I can tell you the bottom line here is content no longer matters. All that matters is the filtering and ordering of content, and that is completely in the hands of Google and Facebook, and to a lesser extent, Twitter.
So what would happen? I know that you've gamed this out to some large extent. How would a company, you're not accusing them of this, but potentially, how would a company like Facebook or Google manipulate public opinion to achieve a desired result in an election?
Well, I think they're doing this all the time, actually, because we're well aware of the fact that they suppress material. Sometimes they announce it, sometimes they don't. We are aware of the fact that Google puts some items higher in search results than other items. Well, if search results favor one candidate, that shifts votes. I think we're well aware of the fact that news feeds on Facebook sometimes seem to favor one political point of view over another, and that shifts votes. So I have an article coming out very soon about 10 different ways that these big tech companies can shift millions of votes in November. In fact, I calculate this November they'll be able to shift upwards of 12 million votes just in the midterm elections.
Well, I mean, if they have the power to do that, and they have a demonstrated political preference and a demonstrated willingness to exercise that preference by suppressing information they disagree with, as we both have seen, then why shouldn't we be terrified that they're going to subvert our democracy completely?
Well, I think democracy has been subverted, actually, because at the moment, you see, there are no specific rules or regulations that are stopping these companies from exercising the power that they have. So that's a problem. Another problem is that we have no monitoring systems in place at the moment. I'm working with academics and with business people to build monitoring systems, But until those systems are fully in place, you can't even really track what it is they're doing, what it is they're showing people. So we've got some big problems here at the moment. I think the problems can be solved at some point, but at the moment, I think democracy is in trouble.
So Republicans don't want to do anything because they're free market absolutists under the narcotic sway of the libertarian religion. And Democrats don't want to do anything because they know it helps them. But without Congress acting, would anybody trust our electoral system as honest and on the up and up?
Well, I wouldn't trust it at the moment because, in the research I do, I found, number one, that it's very easy to shift a lot of votes without people knowing that they're being influenced. So that's a problem. And the other problem is that you can do this without leaving a paper trail. So at the moment, I think we're really in deep trouble, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The Republicans aren't doing anything about it. The Democrats aren't doing anything about it, each for their own reasons.
It's terrifying. Thank you, Dr. Epstein, for calling attention to this. You're one of the only people who has, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Robert Mueller's hunt for Russian collusion, you may have noticed, has turned into a permanent one-sided fishing expedition in which people's lives are being destroyed for no good reason. Why is it continuing? Is there a justification for that? Someone who has tracked the investigation from day one joins us next. Well, the special counsel investigation headed by Robert Mueller was created, you will remember, to investigate Russian meddling in the 2016 election. It didn't take much time to deduce there was very little to investigate there, but the investigation didn't go away. They never do. It broadened over and over until it became what it is now, which is a team of Democratic attorneys prying into the personal lives of anyone associated with Donald Trump and sending some of them to prison. So what justifies the continued existence of this investigation, which is a good question that few ask. Kim Strassel of the Wall Street Journal does, though, and she joins us tonight. So, Kim, what is the pretext for continuing this at this stage?
Well, it's hard to know. Again, we were supposed to talk about Trump-Russia collusion. So far, in all of the time that the special counsel has gone along, he's not found any evidence of that. Now, his mandate did say any related crimes, so I guess if you were going to give him a rationale, you could say if he found evidence of wrongdoing, he has an obligation to follow those leads as well. But I think one of the frustrations out there among a lot of people who are watching this is that you now have this very one-sided probe where all the people who were accused of things and were not necessarily found guilty of any of those accusations are still under the spotlight, whereas those who made the accusations and potentially have done some criminal activity of their own are getting no scrutiny whatsoever.
So, look, I'm not defending Michael Cohen, who I just want to say for the record I've always thought was a ridiculous sleazeball. But if at the end we find out that he didn't pay taxes on the sale of a handbag and, like, brokered a deal to a porn star, I mean, that's not really worth ending business of government for 2 years, is it? Is anyone going to admit that?
No, because they're so invested in this point in legitimizing and rationalizing. Look, ask yourself this question, which is somewhat mystifying. Michael Cohen has been brought up on 2 felony charges of breaking campaign finance laws. I've written about campaign finance laws a lot. It is exceptionally rare that they are ever prosecuted at a criminal level. They are almost always civil charges. So why did they do it? They did it so that they could have a connection with Trump and all the headlines that we've had this week. It's the only thing that I can think of for why they would have gone down that path, especially because we read that they had close to 20 charges that they wanted to bring again, and they dropped a number of them just so that they could get the few that they got on taxes and banks and the campaign finance violations.
But, I mean, how destabilizing is this for the country? I mean, if you find out the president's colluding with Vladimir Putin, you know, bust him for it. But if people come away thinking this is on both sides, but everybody watching knows what this is. It's a bunch of people who hate Trump are trying to bring him down by any means necessary. But when the smoke clears, does anyone trust the justice system at all anymore?
Well, no, and here's one of the problems is, look, I think a lot of Americans, when Bob Mueller was first put in place, thought, all right, get to the bottom of this very serious accusation. Was there Trump-Russia collusion?
Exactly.
Look, that was a big deal. We deserved an answer to that. But if you're now going to go down the line of prosecuting all these other things, and then you're not even going to take a look at the people who may have done wrong in making these accusations and lodging that very serious accusation at the top echelons of our government, where it was acted upon by the FBI. I mean, look, if you're going to go after Michael Cohen for campaign finance violations, why is nobody taking a look at the Hillary Clinton campaign or the DNC, who hired an opposition research firm but did not state that accurately on their campaign finance forms? They ran it through a law firm and called it legal services.
It just makes everybody so cynical. It just degrades the country in a way that's going to be hard to recover from. It's very sad to watch. You are one of the clearest explainers of what's going on, Kim Strassel, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Well, America has seen 2 alligator attacks in a single week. One of them killed a woman. Why are we putting up with these carnivorous reptiles living in our midst? That's a question worth asking, and we will after the break. Also, Hurricane Lane is headed for Hawaii. Steve Harrigan is on the scene. Is he strapped to something strong, or will he blow away? We will find out straight ahead. A woman in South Carolina has become the latest victim of a crocodile attack, alligator attack. Kindergarten teacher Cassandra Klein was dragged away and killed while walking her dog on Hilton Head Island. Attacks like this are uncommon still, but they are growing in frequency. In Florida alone, 24 people have been killed by gators since 1948, but of those 24, 14 occurred in the past 20 years. Non-fatal attacks have risen dramatically as well. Lisa Lang is Senior Vice President at PETA, and she joins us tonight. So, Lisa, I know what you're going to say, and I hate to put words in your mouth, but you're going to say that the gator attacks are the fault of people because they're too close to gators. And that probably, as a biological matter, is right. I believe that. But it doesn't change the fact that people are more valuable than gators. Gators are highly unattractive, prehistoric, carnivorous reptiles. So why do we put up with this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of human encroachment and pollution, but still you have to answer the question, well, what do we do about it?
Yes.
And after this tragic incident this week in South Carolina, it's important to know, as you said, that these incidents are exceedingly rare. But I think what's especially tragic about this, too, is that it's 100% preventable. We're seeing a number of problems in this age of social media, for example. You're probably not going to be surprised to hear that a big problem is people feeding alligators, and people are doing that with alligators and other wildlife for the perfect selfie or to be able to put up a YouTube video. And what that does is not only endanger the person who's doing the feeding, but of course it gets these animals more used to interaction with human beings, which is dangerous for the next person down the line. And then the animal, of course, loses their life.
I get it. And look, I really love animals, and I think PETA's a little lunatic, but I actually kind of support some of the things you do because I love animals that much. But these are disgusting reptiles. You're blaming the victim. I mean, feeding an alligator should not be a death penalty offense. Wouldn't it just be easier to shoot the alligators? Why is that so bad?
Well, yeah, well, they're an important part of the ecosystem. And anytime we jump in and we start to kill predators or animals we don't like because they look different from us or they're prehistoric looking, it's a really big mess for the environment. They control rodent populations. They control nutria populations. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea for the ecosystem, and it's a bad idea ethically. And it's, back to whose fault is this? I doubt very highly that this woman knew what the risks were. There's no way she would have walked that closely
because the alligator went after her dog. And you represent PETA, you're pro-animal, so am I. If you have to make a call between a dog and a reptile, you've got to choose the dog. Let's put up on the screen. This is a Gila monster. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. Oh, there's a Springer Spaniel, the most noble of all dogs. If that is going to be killed by a Gila monster or a pit viper or a Komodo dragon or some disgusting reptile, there's a Gila monster right there. You shoot the reptile because there is a hierarchy of animals. Can you concede that? They're not all the same. A housefly is not the same as a golden retriever.
Well, no, absolutely. And my dog, of course, means more to me than my neighbor's dog. And I understand that. But I'm also an outdoors person. I backpack. I trail run.
Too.
I know there are certain seasons where I can't take my dog with me because of rattlesnakes. Or I know that there's a certain area where there are mountain lions near where I live. So I don't take her because I know that if I'm going to put myself at risk, that's one thing, but I'm not going to put her at risk. And there are just certain things, like, were there signs here that she could see? There are where I trail run. There are constant reminders that there's wildlife there that we have to be careful of. I don't know.
But what about
if
the
they were
little
there to
kid who
warn
got
her.
dragged out into the pond at Disney World in Florida?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to
I
blame
know.
him. So, like, why wouldn't you just go through
it's never the
and kill
victims.
every alligator? I mean, really, are we going to miss alligators? I mean, let's be totally honest here. We're not going to miss the alligators. They make awesome luggage. Why not? I wouldn't.
No,
at all. And I love animals.
I would.
You'd miss the alligators.
I would miss them, and yes, absolutely, and the ecosystem would miss them. They're here for a reason. And even if you don't feel warm and cuddly about them, they do serve a purpose. And to kill them, unless you kill all of them, which no one is a proponent of, then they will make up the numbers. They will adjust their.
I don't know. I might
number
be.
Of babies.
We're out of time. You'll have to come back to finish the conversation. But I might be a proponent of that.
Okay.
I don't know. But as long as you're on the side of dogs, I'm on your side. Lisa Lang, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Hurricane Lane is on track for Hawaii. We're hoping conditions allow Steve Harrigan to get his shot up for us, taking a risk being there at this time. We're going to check in with him after the break. We have an update in our ongoing investigation into collaboration between the federal government, your federal government, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, the fake civil rights group. The SPLC is basically an adjunct of the Democratic Party. Its activist wing. It exists only to tar the Democratic Party's enemies as, quote, hate groups and destroy them. Now we know they've been able to do that in part thanks to your money, taxpayer money. Our investigation of U.S. spending data revealed that the Department of Homeland Security paid the Southern Poverty Law Center about $4,500 a decade ago for, quote, educational support, as well as a training course on, quote, bias and hate crimes. Fortunately, a DHS spokesman told our program they no longer use the SPLC for training purposes and haven't done that since 2008. We're glad to hear that. You should be, too. As for the FBI, though, the Bureau previously told us they have a, quote, relationship with the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is outrageous, but denied to us today that they have a, quote, partnership with the SPLC. We have no idea what that means. They probably don't either. The Bureau has called the SPLC, quote, credible and allowed it to brief FBI agents who are armed and can arrest you. We've repeatedly asked the FBI to tell us the truth, to clarify its current relationship with the SPLC. They act like there's nothing to explain in the first place, which is dishonest and infuriating. A spokeswoman told us, quote, we welcome information from any organization or individual regarding any potential crimes or threats. In other words, the FBI still won't clarify whether it works with the SPLC still. We know they have. Do they still? They won't answer. We'll keep after them until they do. We've got a Fox News alert for you. Hurricane Lane is hitting parts of Hawaii at the moment. Steve Harrigan, the bravest man in television, is on Waikiki Beach. Steve, how is it there?
Tucker, it certainly doesn't feel like a Category 1 hurricane is bearing down on Honolulu, but that's exactly what has been happening. Much of the state has already felt the pain. The Big Island has been hit by more than 3 feet of rain in some places, washing out roads, causing some landslides. A number of home rescues have had to be carried out as well. And that trouble is slowly coming north this way as well. It's a slow-moving storm, just about 5 miles an hour, and it's dumping rain wherever it goes. It was originally a Category 5 storm with very powerful winds. It's down to a 1 now, but it's not going to be the wind. It's going to be the rain. They've been closing everything in sight, schools, government offices, even some flights canceled on different parts of the island. Shelters have opened up across the island as well, about 1,000 people in shelters here, but officials are warning people to try and shelter in place. They've told people to try and have enough food and water for the next 14 days, which is certainly a tall order in a state which hasn't had a major hurricane landfall in 27 years. Tucker, back to you.
Steve, have you told the people behind you? They seem kind of unconcerned on Oahu tonight.
It's a very calm Hawaiian atmosphere,
yes,
despite danger probably about 8 or 10 hours away. We could see some flash flooding and some road closures, but you see children in the water right now. The police have tried to bring those surfers in, but surfers somehow just not listening to the police today, Tucker.
Steve Harrigan, who's been in some very hairy situations over the years. Be safe, Steve. Thank you. Thank you. And God bless the people of Hawaii. Good luck. That's about it for us tonight. Tune in every night, 8 p.m. to the show that is the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. And we mean it. That's not just a talking point. There's a lot of pressure to conform, and we consistently refuse. We hope you will, too. Judge Jeanine hosting Hannity next. Have the best weekend. We'll see you Monday.